It's much safer to come here, change your diet, lose the weight, get rid of the visceral fat, suck the cholesterol out of your juvenile plaque, and get healthy. In other words, you can't use medical procedures and drugs to do what an excellent diet can do.
Welcome to the Brain Fit Podcast, where we share the cutting-edge science on how you can improve your memory and live a happier, healthier life.
My name is Robert Love. I'm a neuroscientist and I specialize in helping people prevent Alzheimer's disease with science. I have a medical clinic in Florida where we are reversing Alzheimer's in our patients, and my chief medical officer is Dr. Josh Hellman, a medical doctor trained at Harvard. Today on the Brain Fit Podcast, I interview Dr. Joel Fuhrman. He is a medical doctor who specializes in helping people reverse chronic health conditions with diet. In this episode, you're going to learn about the optimal diet for your brain, common mistakes people are making for your brain, quote, healthy foods that are actually damaging your brain, and the foods you can eat to help heal your body and heal your brain. So here is Dr. Joel Fuhrman.
Welcome back. We have another fabulous guest for you here. We have Dr. Joel Fuhrman, who, if you're on the internet at all, he is one of the most famous, well-known medical doctors here in the United States, who specializes in anti-aging and longevity. Dr. Fuhrman, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Looking forward to it.
And so can you tell us a little about what you do?
Well, I've spent my career taking care of people who mostly have significant medical conditions and teaching them that they can get well. They don't have to be sick the rest of their lives. In other words, that you don't have to have a heart attack or a stroke, and you don't have to get cancer. Those are preventable illnesses through nutritional excellence. And people can reverse psoriasis, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, ulcerative colitis, high blood pressure, diabetes, atherosclerosis, chronic headaches, chronic fatigue. What I'm saying is that I'm a board-certified family physician, so I have the ability to give medications when needed, but mostly how I prescribe is to wean people slowly down off medications, enabling them to make full recoveries so they don't need to be on drugs the rest of their life. So mostly what I've done most of my career. Yeah.
I love how you really want people to use food as medicine, and you really want to minimize and gradually reduce down the pharmaceutical drugs. This is, as you know, this is pretty much the opposite of what so many medical doctors are trained to do and how they're practicing medicine in the United States, which is they're not working on diet, they're not working on exercise. They may talk about it, but that's not the focus of their practice. They're mostly prescribing prescription drugs, and the results speak for themselves.
Yes, they don't have the knowledge or the tools or the training to be able to take a person with psoriatic arthritis and tell them, you can make a full recovery from this illness. They just know the one way, which is giving them a biological chemotherapeutic agent, which then increases the risk of cancer to make them feel a little better. And for example, with baseline garden variety illnesses like high blood pressure and diabetes, they're just giving them drugs to cover up the underlying pathology, so the person is not aware of it, but the disease continues to advance, while the person thinks they're now okay on the medications. And the doctor's input does not have a significant effect on increasing the person's longevity or health. In other words, mostly what doctors are doing is worthless, these chronic illnesses, because they're diet-induced.
Oh my gosh.
And the lifespan of Americans has gone down, not up, in the last 50 years. In other words, exposure to medical care does not protect us from dying because people keep eating a diet that's self-destructive, and the overall average death of the average American continues to get worse, not better. And we're not having, of course, people aren't not dying of heart attacks anymore. We're not reducing the heart attack death rate or making them die at a later year because of medical interventions. They're still having the same outcomes and dying just as young, eating just as much.
What do you attribute this decrease in lifespan? Because the United States is the richest country in the world. I think we have the best technology in the world, some of the best technology. We spend more on healthcare per person than any other country, and yet we have a decreasing average lifespan. What do you attribute this to?
There's a gradual increase in caloric consumption by Americans over the last 100 years. In 1900, only 4% of Americans had heart attacks and strokes. Right now, I make the joke and I say, half of what we eat meets our needs, and the other half meets the needs of our doctors.
Oh my goodness, that's a profound statement.
And it seems like it's a joke, but it's really not, because most human species throughout human history were eating around 1,200 to 1,600, around 1,500 calories a day, and Americans eat about 3,300. We do eat well over double the amount that humans need. But the answer to your question directly is the growing waistlines of Americans. that we saw with the processed food movement after the World War II, and then the fast food movement started in the 1960s. More people were eating out in restaurants and fast food, but more commercial baked goods. But in any case, the increased calories led to a growing American size, body size, BMI, and waistlines. And that there was, there's been a slow and gradual increased risk of cancer, heart attacks, and autoimmune diseases that parallel each other, and autism, that parallel the increasing weight. And autism, yes. That processed foods, commercial goods are linked to autism, consumed by the mother is linked to more birth defects and autism.
But let me go off on a slight tangent here about prenatal food. What do you recommend mothers eat when they're pregnant? I've heard that eating high quality fatty fish or eating lots of fish oil, that actually helps the development of baby's brain with the DHA and the other omega-3 fatty acids, and so that's helpful for brain development. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you recommend women eat during pregnancy and what you recommend they avoid eating during pregnancy.
Right. I'd recommend the opposite of what you just said, but let me go over that a little bit, okay? Most people remember that health authorities recommend women take folic acid during pregnancy to prevent neural tube defects. And what I'm saying, that's a formula to produce more death and tragedies and more acute blastocytic leukemia. The leading cause of death in children, other than accidents, is acute blastocytic leukemia. And it's linked to the consumption of luncheon meats with nitrosamino compounds and the lack of green vegetables in the mother's diet, not only during pregnancy, but even prior to conception. So I wrote a book on this called Fast Food Genocide, the deteriorating genes as we pass on weaker and more disease-prone genes to the future generations as we eat poorly. But folate that's found in green vegetables is not the same compound as folic acid, which is synthetic. We don't need a synthetic compound to have normal babies. We need to eat vegetables. And then when we're eating vegetables and beans that are high in folate, the body doesn't produce heart defects either. So now women are given a pill, folic acid, so they don't have to think of eating a healthy diet. They can just go to, eat fast food or commercial baked goods, or anything they want, and think their baby's protected with the folic acid. And folic acid itself.
Now, what about a high quality B vitamin like folinic acid or a methylated B vitamin? Are those helpful or are those detrimental?
Well, folic acid increases risk of breast and prostate cancer. And what I'm saying is that prescribing folic acid prevents the opportunity that us health authorities had to instruct women to eat a diet rich in green vegetables. It's not only the folate in the green vegetables that prevents birth defects. You get hundreds of thousands of other nutrients that are essential for normal brain and normal body and normal development. We're a green vegetable dependent animal. Green vegetables have the phytochemicals, the isothiocyanates, to support the intraepithelial lymphocytes in the digestive tract. They enable the body to remove buildup of metabolic waste. We don't have normal immune function or normal without a high green vegetable consumption.
If you or someone you love has Alzheimer's or another form of dementia, I want you to know there is hope. Alzheimer's is preventable and it is even reversible. In fact, we are reversing Alzheimer's in my medical clinic here in Florida. My partner and medical director is Dr. Josh Hellman, a medical doctor trained at Harvard who specializes in preventing and reversing Alzheimer's disease, and we are reversing Alzheimer's in our patients. If you'd like to learn more about working with us to both prevent Alzheimer's and even reverse Alzheimer's and reverse memory loss associated with other forms of dementia, we would love to hear from you and send you some free information so you can learn what we are doing and see if it's a fit for you to come down and work with us in our clinic. We also work with other clinics around the country to help patients both prevent Alzheimer's as well as to reverse Alzheimer's and reverse memory loss associated with dementia. So if you'd like to learn more, go to brainpowerclinics.com. Go to brainpowerclinics.com and then enter your information. We will send you some free information, and then we hope to work with you, if we can be helpful to you, to help you prevent and reverse Alzheimer's disease.
So it's the same thing like giving a person with high blood pressure a high blood pressure medication instead of taking the salt and the saturated fats and the fried foods out of their diet. It's like you're giving them a pill so it looks better, but overall the disease advances. It's the same thing. We turn everything into a pill solution instead of getting to the cause. So instead of teaching women how to eat and don't eat processed meats and eat a lot of vegetables and beans, when you're pregnant, we give them a pill to take. So now they're going to we could have wiped out childhood cancer and autism, but we didn't. We chose to give people dependency on synthetic substances. So there may be other folate supplements or folate-like supplements that are not dangerous, like folic acid, but it's still not instructing the cause. It still would be missing the cause. The cause is eat a healthy diet, not take supplements to get to take care of that.
I love that. I fully agree with that. So for women.
Let me answer the question about fish, okay? Most health authorities recommend that we avoid or limit fish consumption during pregnancy. The reason for that is mostly exposure, because when you're pregnant, pregnancy is like a Geiger counter for toxicity. So the baby's developing cells are more potentially damaged by toxins, poisons, pollution. We know that we have higher amounts of ALS and PDS, Parkinson's dementia syndrome, in people living around lakes or coastal waterways like Chesapeake Bay, because the agricultural runoff, which produces more algae bloom and supports the growth of cyanobacteria. I know this is complicated, but it dumps BMAA into the water, which is a toxin, and that's mixed with 1,000 tons of plastic being dumped off coastal waterways into the waterways every hour. Thousands of tons every hour dumped into coastal waterways. So the most toxic, or you could say risky, things to consume are bivalves and shellfish. So that's very risky when you're pregnant. Bivalves means clams, oysters, scallops, and mussels, right? Clams, oysters, scallops, and mussels, because they're bottom feeders, and the BMAA and shellfish like crabs and lobster also have 50 times the BMAA, leak to brain damage and neurologic diseases later in life. Unfortunately, those things taste very good and people love to eat them, and also freshwater lakes had a lot of algae overgrowth. And then because of the plastics, most people have a lot of microplastic exposure, and larger fish off the continental shelf obviously have more mercury and toxic metals and PCBs because they're more than predatory fish live in deeper waters. So the answer is that, if you keep your body clean, the right diet for during pregnancy really is a diet with organic plant foods, utilizing a clean omega-3 DHA and EPA supplement and a zinc supplement and a B12 supplement to get those protective nutrients you would have gotten had you eaten seafood. So, I do recommend people take a clean or fresh source of like an algae EPA DHA, But in any case, if a person does want to eat fish or does eat fish, then they shouldn't eat it often, more than a few times a month. And we used to think the littler fish like sardines or, like minnows and things were less toxic. But now we're finding out because you eat the smaller fish with the digestive tract intact, you get more plastic exposure than you would have if you.
Oh no, I eat lots of sardines. I love sardines. They're great survival food. I bought a bunch before the pandemic, and I had food when there was no food on the grocery store shelves. By the way, for those of you watching, if you're not stocking up on healthy food now's the time to do it. There's healthy food at the grocery store. You can get your black rice. You can get your vitamin C and your zinc supplements. Remember, those were hard to come by. You can get shelf-stable, healthy food just in case something were to happen again. We would all remember what that was like. So Dr. Fuhrman, you're saying that sardines, because of the way that they're served with the digestive tract intact, that there's more plastic or microplastics in sardines than something like a wild caught salmon.
Correct. I mean, if you like, the cleanest fish would be if you live near a tropical island in the South Pacific and you're eating foods that weren't made from fish farms or wild fish that were caught near coastal waterways off the continental shelf of the United States or Western Europe or China. Those would be the most toxic. So we need to, so even though PCBs and other toxins have permeated the whole world, you still get a cleaner fish. You still get a dirtier fish if you're eating the most commercial fishes that we have access to in the United States, Now,
what about herring? There's the great pickled herring that I really like from Whole Foods. It's very good. I would think about herring.
I don't know. Don't forget, I'm also explaining to people that salt is also one of the most toxic and causes more heart attacks and strokes and premature death in people eating high salt foods. So isn't herring quite salty? Isn't it heavily?
I suppose it is. So let's talk about that, because there's this salt is an interesting debate, because there, as there's a lot of people saying we need more salt, we need more potassium, we need more sodium to help balance the minerals, and that can improve brain function. And a lot of people most people are eating too much bread. And according to the CDC, bread and rolls is the number one source of added salt to the American diet. And so I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on salt and why people would want to reduce their salt intake, or what the proper salt intake looks like for the average healthy adult and or children.
Yes, because we know when we follow primitive societies, and there are those societies that are separate from civilization that don't salt their foods, and you see that those like the Catawba Island study, or the Comomolo Indians, or the Amazons, or in any case, we see that the teenagers have the same blood pressure as toddlers do. Middle age have the same blood pressure as toddlers do, and the elderly have the same blood pressure as toddlers do. In other words, we don't see raising blood pressure with aging in primitive societies that don't salt their food. Furthermore, we see no heart attacks or strokes in those societies. In the Catawba Island study, not only were there no heart attacks and strokes in the present population, but their ancestors have no history of that.
I would like to thank our sponsor, Microingredients. All of Microingredients products are third-party tested, so you know you are getting the highest quality products. They have a great collagen that can help reduce wrinkles, also great for your skin, hair, nails. MCT oil, I love this in my coffee, great for the brain, also great for weight loss. Their blueberry powder, this is organic blueberry powder. This is fantastic for your brain. And then they also have a great curcumin supplement that's very good. So this blueberry powder, this is organic blueberries, which is so important. And this is such a great deal. This is 350 servings in this. This is $10 of organic blueberries at Costco. This is $20 or $30. And this is organic blueberry powder, 350 servings. This is $10. This is like 3 or 4 days worth. Such a great value. I add this to my smoothie. I add it to desserts. I add it to my yogurt made of coconut. This is so good. Great for kids who are trying to get more nutrition in them. So try the organic blueberry powder. It's a terrific value. It'll last you a long time. And you get lots of great antioxidants and polyphenols that are terrific for your brain. To get this, go to Amazon and then use the coupon code RobertLove at checkout.
What are your top 3 foods that increase the risk of type 2 diabetes?
The 3 worst foods are sugar or sweeteners such as honey, maple syrup, agave nectar. We're talking about sweeteners. And then the next food is white flour, or even pastry flours. And white flour is a sugar equivalent. It's not a second food. It's the same food as the first food. White flour is sugar. It converts in the body as sugar. So I'm saying here is that sweeteners, white flour, and salt, and lastly, fried foods and oils. Fried foods and oils are very powerfully obesity-genic and diabetic, creating diabetes. And most people don't even understand. They think oils are healthy, and they're taught that olive oil, for example, is good for them. And I'm saying, no, olive oil can be a significant risk factor if you're going to use that on your food.
Why is olive oil dangerous? Please help people understand why this is dangerous and why it can increase the risk of type 2 diabetes.
Olive oil is 100% fat. It goes into the bloodstream within minutes, and the rush of calories in the bloodstream are stored as fat immediately, creating fat storage, turning up fat storage hormones, and preventing weight loss. When people are putting oil on their food, the more oil they put on the food, the more weight they have, the more body fat they produce, and it's harder for them to lose weight and harder for them to reduce calories because oil is an appetite stimulant and it prevents you from losing weight. In other words, on the same lowered caloric diet, you're going to lose less weight when there's oil in it, but it's stopping your body from losing weight.
Dr. Fuhrman, what are your top 3 supplements for improving brain function and helping prevent Alzheimer's disease?
I recommend a diet that's very plant-rich with healthy plant foods to slow aging and prevent dementia. But the supplements that really are helpful for that are B12, zinc, and EPA-DHA, because those are the supplements that are not rich in plant foods. They're rich in things like, maybe certain type of seafood that we think is too polluted, like bivalves and shellfish. But we need adequate B12. We need extra zinc because plant foods bind zinc due to phytic acids. We don't get as much zinc absorption from plants as we do from animal products.
If you suffer from brain fog, or if you'd like to increase your mental clarity, I have a great supplement called NeuroPlus Brain and Focus Formula that can be really helpful to you. This is a combination of 7 powerful ingredients that are shown to improve memory, improve focus, improve attention, reduce brain fog, and increase mental clarity. I really like to take this in the afternoon if I'm feeling afternoon brain fog, or if I'm feeling tired. This helps give my brain more energy so I can continue to work during the day. This works really well in the morning with morning coffee and lion's mane. This also works in the afternoon alone or with lion's mane. Do not take this at night. It is very stimulating. It's very powerful. This can help reduce or even end brain fog in as little as 3 days. The average is about 2 weeks, and it comes with a 6-month unconditional money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free. So if you want to try this risk-free, go to robertlove.net and then click the link that says Neuro Plus Brain and Focus Formula.
So in other words, the salt consumption consumed by the human species has gone from about 1,000 milligrams a day to now about 3,000 milligrams a day in the last 500 years. And we've seen, and obviously we have more than, I should say, probably more than 5,000 studies documenting chronic exposure to salt for decades, and it's run its role in causing all-cause mortality. We're not just causing high blood pressure. Salt causes microvascular hemorrhaging. It weakens the blood vessels over decades of use, causing increased risk of aneurysms and hemorrhage. But it also increases risk of autoimmune conditions because it suppresses immune function. And it also increases risk of stomach cancer. So there's a tremendous amount of risk from salt consumption. So I'm saying that the amount of sodium humans need is the amount of sodium that is present in natural foods that we get when we eat vegetables and beans and nuts and, things like that. And when we don't salt our foods, we don't overconsume salt, then our sweat is not salty. And we don't urinate out salt either. The body holds on to the sodium it needs. And when it does that, it doesn't excrete extra minerals. The body can't selectively remove sodium from its tissues without also losing other electrolytes at the same time. So then you try to exercise and you get cramping, or you have to take more, you're always mineral deficient because you're continually excreting salt and other minerals in your sweat and in your urine. So I'm suggesting, and then some people say, oh, I can have sodium because my blood pressure is low and I'm not salt responsive. Well, that's also a ridiculous statement because almost everybody by the age of 70 has high blood pressure. And they always say, oh, I never had a high blood pressure. It was always normal. And what happens is the buildup of decades of use of salt, they call it salt years. If we have 1,000 at the baseline of what would be probably acceptable for the human species, 2,000 would be a salt year, 3,000 would be 2 salt years, 4,000 would be 3 salt years. By the number of years you have that extra consumption of sodium. And it adds up over the decades and over the years, causing eventually the sympathetic tone in you shifts and you develop high blood pressure, which is now not as quickly responsive to a healthy diet or salt avoidance had you done it before you had the sympathetic tone change itself. But in any case, I'm just giving some information about how we get sufficient sodium when we eat natural foods, and the extra salt humans are consuming are detrimental to human survival, and that you have all types of crazy people on the internet telling people that a carnivore diet is good or a keto diet is good or salt is good or take high doses of iodine or take 50,000 years of vitamin D or you have all types of, on both sides of every equation, right? But it takes a lot of work and time to investigate. Like, for example, maybe there's 100 to 1,000 studies in the scientific literature, and you review all the studies and rate them based on their credence and their value of a well-done study, and you're left with 100 studies. That's called a meta-analysis, right? But so it's very rare that a person isn't, let's say, having some predetermined bias to prove, pulling out some studies they want to promote what they're interested in promoting to have their niche or their own message look good. There are people who say it's better to eat more cholesterol. Cholesterol doesn't matter. Eat all the egg yolks you want. Eat all the eggs you want. Eat all the fat you want. There's all time. If you want to do something, you can get people to support you on the internet with whatever you want to do.
Now, salt tastes delicious in food, and that's going to be a hard one for a lot of people to give up. How do you recommend people reduce salt in their diet without really sacrificing some of the taste that they like? Have you found salt alternatives? For example, I really like coconut aminos instead of soy sauce. Coconut aminos are a lot lower in sodium. They're also gluten-free. And so that's something that's a healthy alternative that I have used. What are some foods or spices that you have found are really helpful in maintaining a low sodium diet without sacrificing too much taste?
Yeah, I don't agree with that concept either, by the way, because salt deadens your taste buds, and the more you acclimate to it, the more it not only weakens your taste buds to taste the natural salt in foods, it also weakens accessory and other taste ability of your tongue. So you lose your taste muscle. So people who are off salt for 3 months or more finally find that they can enjoy flavors that food never had before. And so the addiction to salt has weakened people's ability to enjoy flavors. So they don't taste the sweetness of lettuce. They don't taste that an avocado or an artichoke has unique, subtle flavors. They don't taste the strawberries even being sweet. Their taste buds are deadened from all the salt and sugar in their diet. So what I'm saying to you, it's the opposite. You lose pleasure of eating, and you lose the subtle symphony of flavors that food offers you when you overdose your taste buds with salt. It's only the temporary loss of flavor when you first come off the salt. With any addiction, when you first stop smoking or come off the alcohol, come off all the sweets, temporarily you're going to feel worse, and temporarily you're going to feel like you're missing something. People have these love affairs with illicit substances that are dangerous for them, but that's called withdrawal.
Sure do.
So we're talking about the fact that, and people have rationalizations because they always, the primitive brain is so powerfully and its addictive attraction to these substances that it'll come up with irrational excuses why they can't give it up. I can't give up sugar. I can't do that, or I can't do that because I'm too busy. I might go out to eat, or it's the primitive brain is defending itself. But I have to say that, yes, we use roasted garlic and the subtle flavors of herbs and spices. We toast sesame seeds and poppy seeds and mix them with cardamom and tarragon. And we have all types of interesting and delicious flavors and delicious desserts and delicious recipes made without salt, without sweet sugar, without sweeteners like honey and maple syrup. We don't cook things in oil. So a nutritarian diet is a diet that's, we're not using processed foods, and it's SOS free. SOS free means sugar, salt, and oil free. See, a conventional diet gets fat from animal fats and oils, and we get our fat from whole natural plants like walnuts and sesame seeds and hemp seeds and almonds and avocado and things like that. So we're trying to eat as much natural food as possible.
Now, would you like to go out to eat? So I recently went to a vegan restaurant in San Francisco. I was amazed. I couldn't find something that I could eat because I don't eat nightshades. So a lot of stuff had tomatoes in it. And then a lot of the vegan food was fried food. I said, I'm at a vegan restaurant. I really don't want to have French fries. And I don't want the Impossible Burger, And so I had them make me a customized salad with some chopped up carrots and some roasted cauliflower. So I had to make my own meal at the vegan restaurant. What do you like to eat? Are you able to eat out? And what are some instructions that you use when you eat out? Like I sometimes bring my own sauces. That's been helpful. I'll bring my own olive oil because their olive oil can have canola oil in it. Are you able to eat out? And then what are some tips that you found are helpful so that you can eat out and not intake things that are unhealthy for you?
Well, I can eat out for social purposes and ask for something I would like them to make. But you're right. I agree with what you're saying, that just because a restaurant is vegan doesn't have anything to do with it being healthy. They could be eating fried food, salted food, greasy food, sugar, honey. It doesn't matter. Plenty of junk food, vegan food. But in any case, whether you go to a vegan restaurant or non-vegan restaurant, you still have to, it usually is helpful to call ahead to the chef and ask if he could accommodate whatever your needs would be. But in any case, besides that, I have better tasting food at home than I would at a restaurant. Because once you take, they don't really know how to make food taste good. They just know how to make conventional food that people like to eat that's heavily, is fried, salted. So, I have a retreat in San Diego where people who are overweight, food addicts, and who have medical conditions come here to get well. And they stay here a month or 2 months or 3 months. And we have 4 chefs that make incredibly delicious food that, there's much better taste than any restaurant. So I have food here. And, of course, when I lived in New Jersey and I made my own food with my wife, we still made great tasting food. You make like a banana ice cream made with 1 banana for 2 people, a handful of macadamia nuts and real vanilla bean powder, and a splash of plant milk, or salad dressings made with, with tomato sauce, sun-dried tomatoes, roasted garlic, black fig vinegar, almonds and toasted, So we have all these incredibly delicious recipes, and that's what my teachings and my message is, to show people that you can eat a diet where you can live to be, the average lifespan of a human should be between 97 and 107 years old. We don't have to worry about ever getting...
Wow, the average lifespan, this is fantastic. Average lifespan, 97 to 107. Wow, I'm aiming for 120 in good health. I'm 41 right now. I just got stem cells. I got PRP. I'm doing my best to... I really want to shoot for long-term in real good health. So you're saying the average...
Nothing's wrong with having unrealistic expectations and shooting for the stars, as long as you're doing everything appropriate. But the reality is, There's very few humans in history have ever lived that long. But we know that when people eat very healthfully, they do live that long. And my experience and people who follow my guidance who are in their 70s and 80s are now, passing 95 easily. But even in the blue zones, where people live the longest around the world, they only live about, 6 to 8 years longer than the average American. And of course, the average American lifespan has gotten worse over the last decades. We mentioned that it's been steadily going down since 1950. There was a blip between 1980 and 1995 where it went up because doctors stopped prescribing estrogen for women, hormone replacement therapy for women. It took us about 20 years of hormone replacement, realizing it was shortening women's lifespans, and doctors finally stopped that. Most doctors stopped it. Some doctors tried to convince women falsely that biological identical hormones would be okay for them, which is really ridiculous. But in any case,
Earl, I want to hear more about your retreat. But my thought on longevity is that as technology improves, so after World War II, generally speaking, the average lifespan in the United States went up approximately a quarter year every year. So every 4 years, we got an additional year of life. And that was the statistic for a while until it still started going down with other blips in the middle. At least that's right.
No, that's not accurate because that's only accurate if you consider infant mortality and childhood births in there. But once you take infant mortality and childhood births out, you'll find that the average lifespan of the average adult did not increase from 1950.
Really? So that increase that I learned in graduate school is not lengthening of life for adults. It's childhood mortality from after World War II. Improvements in childhood mortality. That's fascinating. I did not know that. That's really interesting.
Childbirth mortality.
That's very interesting.
Mortality gone down since 19.
People understand how big this was. Historically speaking, every childbirth, I think, 50% of childbirths, the mother or the child died historically until modern medicine, something like that. So childbearing was very, very dangerous for women. Generally speaking, that was the risks in the world. Men, our risk was war with neighboring tribes throughout most of our evolutionary history.
Absolutely, that's so true. Exactly. If we look at from data we have from the 14th century on Renaissance artists who males who didn't have kids, who didn't die in childbirth because they're males, and they lived long enough to produce works of art, their lifespan on the average was greater than the average male today. They were not living so much longer today. We just had a high amount of infant mortality and women child-related deaths back then. But the idea that modern medicine...
Michelangelo and Leonardo lived. They lived to their 80s. Raphael died very young. Raphael liked women and wine way too much. And he died in his late 20s, early 30s.
I was responding to what you said. I was making a joke. I was saying, are you suggesting that been shortening or just the wine is? I wasn't sure which point you were making, but it was just a
little bit of both. But Leonardo and Michelangelo, we think were homosexuals, so they would just spend all their time on their art, and somehow that not spending time with women is associated with their lengthening the lifespan.
I would like to take a brief break and acknowledge our sponsor, Air Doctor. So it is a really good idea to get an air filter for your home, your office, and especially your bedroom, because our air is not clean, and an unclean air can bring toxins into our body, and that can hurt our brain. Dr. Dale Bredesen talks about the importance of getting a HEPA filter. Now, Air Doctor is a very sophisticated air filter. It filters out 10 particles 100 times smaller than a regular HEPA filter. So it's very high quality. If you want to try an Air Doctor, it is a great product. I use it. I have one right next to me. I have one in my bedroom when I sleep, and I use it next to me in my office when I work during the day. So if you'd like to try an Air Doctor, go to airdoctorpro.com/love. That will give you a really nice discount.
And so my thought is, as far as longevity, based upon the improvements in technology, that something will come along or procedures will continue to improve so that 120, so I'm 41. So let's say I'm 40. So if we add, so in 60 years, I'll be 100. My thought is by that time, we'll have some really great technology available, and or we'll have diet really dialed in, or we'll have these things figured out where living another 20 years actually isn't science fiction, it's science fact. And so I'm trying to eat the healthy diet. I'm doing my best to eat the healthy diet now, or what I think is the healthy diet, doing the exercise, getting really good sleep, reducing stress, taking healthy supplements now, in the hopes that in the next 60 years, some new technology comes along that allows us to extend lifespan past what you think the average lifespan would be, 97 to 107. I'm hoping to get to 120. Maybe by 120, it'll beat 160. I don't know, but I'm counting on improvements in technology along the way.
Well, 97 to 107 already is more than 20 years above what Americans are living right now. The average American male is dying at 76, and the average American female is dying a little short of 80. So we're having 20 years is it's not, we are expending 20 years. Well, not just extending life 20 years. We're maintaining brain size, mental and physical capacity, so we can enjoy our life and have a health span and play span that matches the increased 20-year lifespan. So that's potentially available today. We're not waiting for invent something that could potentially increase our lifespan. It may be the case that taking placental stem cells from women and injecting them increases lifespan, but not going to be as powerful. And it's not going to oppose the damage people do to their junk food diets. You still have to eat right to do that. And then, of course, in today's society, taking stem cell infusions that may have some effect on lifespan is prohibitively expensive. It's more than $30,000, and you have to do it multiple times for it to have an effect. So just like we have flying cars today, they're more out of the price range of most people to achieve.
We do have flying cars today. A lot of people don't know that. We do have flying cars today.
If you're a billionaire, you could afford a flying car, but most of us can't benefit from flying cars because they're too expensive. The technology is there, but it's too expensive. Same thing with stem cells. It's too expensive for most of us. But we can't. But eating right is here right now, and it's real. And it prevents heart attacks and cancers. And we don't have to have these diseases happen to us like happens to everybody we know and all our family.
Let's get into diet here for the optimal health and longevity. What do you recommend for adults? And then if you have something specific for women, I'd love to hear that. And I love that this is your mission, is sharing the value of healthy food and reducing our need for prescription drugs and food being the answer to optimal health, longevity, and disease prevention, and even treating disease. So what do you recommend, broad strokes for most people?
All right. So I want people to write down these 5 words to start out with, because these 5 words are the most proven methodology to slow aging and extend human lifespan, okay? These are the 5 words you have to know. Moderate caloric restriction. Those are 3 of the words. In the context of micronutrient excellence. Those are the other 2 words. So moderate caloric restriction with micronutrient excellence. So we achieve that. And I'm saying the same diet that maximally slows aging is most therapeutically effective to reverse disease when people have high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, whatever, or, psoriasis, asthma. We see asthma going away and headaches going away. And so we improve immune function. Like we said, we're a green vegetable dependent animal, but the 6 foods with the most scientific documentation to extend lifespan and prevent cancer are G-BOMBs, 6 foods, G-BOMBs. GBOMBS stands for greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds, like flax seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds. Greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. So green vegetables, both cruciferous and non-cruciferous, like lettuce is a superfood. Dark green lettuces are rich in sulfoquinavose, which promote the growth of healthy bacteria in the gut. The isothiocyanates coming from the cruciferous family, like broccoli and cabbage family, which includes, arugula and Brussels sprouts and things like that, are incredibly important and necessary for optimal immune function and to remove cellular debris and cellular buildup of metabolic wastes. So we're saying that in order to be normal, in order to have a normal immune function, you have to have high exposure to green vegetables. And we get immune system deterioration and aging when we don't eat sufficient green vegetables. We have the same biology and genome as the other primates do. We haven't evolved to make our immune system non-green vegetable dependent. Those nutrients are essential for human development and good health at all ages of life. So like, for example, the lunch I recommend includes a giant salad with onions, with raw onion or scallion in there, with some cruciferous vegetables like arugula or, watercress or cabbage in there, with a dressing made from nuts and seeds, not oil. So the nuts and seeds might, blended, maybe walnuts and hemp seeds, and blended with some garlicky tomato sauce and some black fig vinegar, and or maybe it's an orange blended with, toasted sesame seeds and cashews and blood orange vinegar and lemon. I'm saying here that the nutritarian diet does not use oil in the diet at all, because there's no such thing as a healthy overweight person, because fat on the body suppresses immune function and spews out inflammatory compounds.
So how does it do that? I'm aware of the fat increasing inflammation, and inflammation basically increases risk of pretty much every chronic disease. By the way, is that true? Is there any chronic disease that's not increased with inflammation, or is inflammation pretty much increase the risk of every known chronic disease?
That's correct, that being overweight increases risk of all-cause mortality, all causes of death, infectious-related death, cancer-related death, high blood pressure, heart attack and stroke-related deaths. All major causes of death are increased by body fat in proportion in a dose-dependent relationship. As you get heavier and heavier, the risks continue to climb. And there's no healthy overweight people. It doesn't matter what the cholesterol is, or they're diabetic or not. There's no such thing as a healthy overweight person. They're all cut short in their life. When you overconsume calories, you're revving up your metabolism to run the furnace at a higher rate, burning off stem cells at a faster rate, and shrinking your telomeres more rapidly. And the answer to your question about what is it about the fat supply that makes it more toxic or more pro-inflammatory, I can give you a lot of reasons, but one reason is it's naturally hypoxic tissue. Hypoxic means it doesn't have a great blood supply. When something is not well perfused with oxygen, you produce more free radicals. And also the fat soluble, it attracts fat soluble toxins in the tissues. And because it's pro-inflammatory, it activates aromatase, which makes the body produce more estrogen. And higher exposure to your own biologically produced estrogen increases risk of both breast and prostate cancer. Plus the fact that in proportion to your excess body fat, you've also become more insulin resistant. The hallmark of a healthy centenarian is insulin sensitivity and the need for less insulin, being insulin sensitive. And as you gain weight, you have to produce more insulin. And insulin is a fat storage hormone that promotes cellular replication, allows cancer cells to grow. So it's pro-angiogenesis, it's excessively promoting angiogenesis, which promote the growth of blood vessels, which allow tumors to glean a blood supply and to replicate. So fat cells can't grow without angiogenesis promotion. And the IGF-1 insulin sandwich, you put these ingredients in a witch's cauldron. I'm saying that commercial baked goods, sugar and white flour is a sugar equivalent. It's the same as, it's not a food, it's like a drug. It promotes...
Yeah, I want to ask you, are you gluten-free? Do you believe that gluten's harmful based upon the scientific data? I'm a big proponent of being gluten-free. I found that's been very helpful to my health.
Not necessarily. I want people to be flour-free and maybe bread-free, but it's not. But gluten only bothers like 1 in 30 people. So gluten is not a major factor for most people, but they're grinding the flour into a fine, into even whole wheat flour is usually ground to like a pastry flour and too highly glycemic. It's the glycemic effect of the flours and the addictive nature of high glycemic foods that make these foods so detrimental.
So it spikes blood sugar, spikes insulin, increases risk of type 2 diabetes, causes weight gain. It's high calorie, it's high in salt. For those reasons, you don't like a lot of the breads, pastries, baked goods, and so forth.
That's correct. It's true that some people are affected negatively by gluten, but the majority of people, even if you look at some of these books on how bad, gluten is, if you look at their references, go through the references, 90% of the references are talking about the dangers of eating eating bread. It's not that they don't prove that gluten is the danger. It's eating the bread and the white flour that's the danger. White flour is an addictive substance. It overstimulates the brain. It causes a high amount of caloric rush. You know what caloric rush means? It means that you can only get caloric rush by eating oils, fried foods, or commercial baked goods and breads with pastry flours and white flours. You can put so many calories in the blood at one time that it overstimulates the areas of the brain where the same opiate and dopamine stimulating centers that are stimulated by drugs. And you become dopamine insensitive. And I'm oversimplifying this, but it makes you dependent on an excess amount of caloric rush. Then you have to eat fried foods. You're not satisfied with an apple. It has to be something like an ice cream or a bagel or fried. It has to be something more calories, more caloric rush. You're not comfortable with the right amount of calories anymore, and so it makes you into a food addict, and you're not comfortable consuming the right amount of calories. And almost everybody in America is a food addict because they're unhealthy, they're overweight, and they're not comfortable if they eat the right amount of calories. They're uncomfortable eating the right amount of calories. They're uncomfortable trying to eat the healthy diet. So what I'm saying that when you eat healthfully, you not only start to gravitate towards your ideal weight and lose weight effortlessly, but you feel comfortable eating the right amount of calories. You feel uncomfortable eating excessive amounts of calories. But there's a process in which we have to change people's instinctual drive for calories that's been taken away from them by the eating processed foods, commercial baked goods, and fast foods.
I fully agree. If I had absolute authority over our foods, if I could make one rule in the world, it would be to make high fructose corn syrup illegal, because I think it's so dangerous. It promotes fat storage. It doesn't even turn off our hunger. It actually increases hunger. I don't think people understand that when you consume a high fructose corn syrup, and it's usually processed foods that have no fiber anyway, the high fructose corn syrup promotes fat storage more so than regular sugar, and it doesn't turn off your hunger signals.
Are you saying that there's cocaine, there's heroin, and there's really bad heroin? Is that what you're saying? Because sugar and white flour are bad enough, and agave nectar is just that are all really bad.
I've been telling people agave is basically, it's high fructose corn syrup masquerading as health food, as expensive health food.
Correct. It's even a more fructose than high fructose corn syrup does. I think high fructose corn syrup
is worse.
It's worse. I think fructose corn syrup is about 60% fructose, and agave nectar is like 80% fructose. It's even worse, and it goes right to.
So it as a health food. This is like as bad as aspartame, NutraSweets. Like, oh, it's 0 calories. This is great for you. Do you have any thoughts on aspartame? I've gotten to a discussion with another social media health expert who's claiming that there's no science to show that aspartame increases the risk of diabetes or that it spikes blood sugar, insulin. He may be right with that, but the link with diabetes is very strong. I love your thoughts on aspartame.
What he's saying is irrelevant, because the use of even the lower calorie sweeteners, even though they don't spike blood sugar or link to diabetes, it's that they keep people addicted to things being excessively sweet. They keep lighting the fire under their desires to be wanting high sweetened substances. So they perpetuate food addiction. So we're talking here about, I'm having a completely different, a whole different way of thinking. There's no.
It's wise. You're saying it's irrelevant whether or not it increases type 2 diabetes. It perpetuates food addiction, and food addiction is from your perspective, is the primary cause of most disease, at least most disease in the United States.
And what percent of people have a BMI above 23 in America? I'm saying that the high lifespan BMI for a male is between 19 and 22, and the high lifespan BMI for a female is between 19 and 22 for a male, between 18 and 21 for a female. That corresponds with a body fat below 15% for a male and below 25% for a female.
Now, what's that for an average height for a 5'5" woman, just so people have a reference, or a 5'10" male?
Right. So it's, and there's some difference in muscular size and body size and stuff like that. It means a male probably should be between like 130 and 160, and an average size 5'8", 5'10" male. And a woman should be probably between 105 or 105 and 125. So we're talking about the average. When
what's striking to me, someone pointed this out. If you look at commercials from the 1950s, people on the beach, everybody's thin. Like, everybody's thin. Or if you look at pictures in advertisements, you look at advertisements, everybody's thin. And now today, it's the complete opposite. So about American are overweight or obese.
Yes, the average woman weighs 160 pounds in America. The average woman in 1920 weighed 120 pounds. But let's go over this. Let's look at this.
Oh my gosh, the average woman's increased in size by 40 pounds in the last 100 years?
That's correct. In the last 100 years, she's increased by 40 pounds. That's right.
Goodness gracious. I'd love for you to tell people about your retreat, because I know a lot of people are going to be interested in that. Can you tell them about your retreat and how you help heal people with healthy food? And then where can they find more information about that?
Thank you. At drfuhrman.com, there's a link that says retreat at my website where people can get more information. Because that sometimes people can watch videos and read books, and I've written 12 books or more, and they can get this on their own, and they can try to take it into their own hands and learn and get support over the internet. That's great, but some people need more help. They need to go somewhere, and they need they want
your great chefs to make this delicious food. I mean, that sounds worth the trip to me.
Yeah, and we have, obviously we have exercise and wisdom and teaching and a lot of different things going on here. But we're training people when they come here so they can leave with the skills, the knowledge, and the desire to stay eating healthfully, to maintain and to continue to move towards better and better health. So a person might lose 50 pounds when they're here for 2 months, but they're continuing to lose weight when they leave, moving towards their ideal weight, because they have the skills now and they've cultivated the taste muscle and the preference for these foods they should be eating. So it's one of the only places in the world where people can come and radically improve their health and change the way they see the world. 75% of our type 2 diabetics that come in are non-diabetic within the first month. 90% are off their type medication.
I'm sorry, that's a wonderful number. Can you say that number again? 75% of diabetics are reversing their type 2 diabetes within the first month?
That's correct. 75% are off all diabetic medications within the first month. Some others take longer. And then likewise, 75% are off their blood pressure medication. And they sometimes come in with very high blood pressure on 3 or 4 medications, but they're coming off their blood pressure normalizes, their diabetes goes away. They can come off the medications, promote weight gain and promote the diabetes most, especially insulin. We got to get them off the insulin and get them losing weight. So they eat right, they exercise properly, and they learn the skills and the techniques, how to make this taste good, how to do it at home, so they can continue the progress when they go home. And when you're dropping weight, you're going to you're incredibly safer because you're reducing inflammation, reducing insulin resistance, reducing the coagulability of the blood, and people are getting their body. So people come here, for example, they're in the hospital after a mild heart attack, and the doctors are telling them they need angioplasty or stent placement, right? And instead of doing that, because they're not treating the acute coronary syndrome, they're not treating an emergency stent, they're putting an elective stent. It's much safer to come here, change your diet, lose the weight, get rid of the visceral fat, suck the cholesterol out of your juvenile plaque, and get healthy. In other words, you can't use medical procedures and drugs to do what an excellent diet can do. So we're really saving people's lives and do what they need to continue. So most people that come here are overweight and looking to lose weight and have some other comorbidities. However, a lot of other people come here just to enjoy the 1,000-acre park next door, the sand volleyball court, the saltwater pool, the pickleball court, the great chefs.
Pickleball, love pickleball. Pickleball is so fun.
Some people just coming here to have a good time and to eat healthy and to hang out with me. You know what I mean? It's to have fun. We're not unhealthy, but most people that come are here because they're getting well. You know.
Fantastic. So if you want, you can go to drfuhrman.com, click retreat, and learn more about that. Dr. Fuhrman, thank you so much for taking the time to be here and share this wonderful information with people. I love your mission. And just to hammer it home for people, food is medicine. Hippocrates had this right. Whether or not he said that quote, it's attributed to him. Let medicine be thy food and food be thy medicine. Let's get people off the prescription drugs that they don't need. Eat lots of green leafy vegetables. So let's go over the G-bombs again. Green leafy vegetables, beans, onions, mushrooms, and what was the last? What was the rest for G-bombs?
Berries and seeds, like flax seeds and chia seeds, very powerful anti-cancer effects. You know, and berries have very powerful anti-cancer effects too.
Berries and seeds. So eat your G-bombs. Let's avoid the processed food, and that can really help prevent so many chronic diseases. You don't need medications to do these things. Dr. Fuhrman, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.